Stop. If you're listening to this, it means part of you knows the truth. You've wasted time. You've delayed things you promised yourself you'd do. And deep down, you're tired of starting over. This audiobook isn't here to motivate you for a day. It's here to rebuild how you think, how you act, and who you become in 2026. You're not lazy. You are undisciplined. And that can be fixed starting now. Chapter 1. The Lie of Laziness. For years, you've probably used one word to describe yourself. Lazy. You say it casually. I'm just lazy. I don't have discipline. I don't have the drive other people have. But that word lazy is a lie, not a small lie, a dangerous one. Because when you believe you are lazy, you stop trying to change. You accept it as part of who you are. You build an identity around it. And identities are hard to escape. Here is the truth most people never hear. You are not lazy. You are untrained. No one is born disciplined. No one is born focused. No one is born with the ability to sit down, ignore distractions, and do hard things consistently. Those skills are trained. And if they are not trained, they weaken, just like a muscle. What you're experiencing isn't laziness. It's avoidance. Laziness versus avoidance. Laziness is the refusal to act when nothing is stopping you. Avoidance is the refusal to act because something feels uncomfortable. Most people don't avoid work because they don't care. They avoid it because it creates pressure, uncertainty, or discomfort. Think about it. You're not lazy when it comes to things you enjoy. You can scroll for an hour. You can play games for hours. You can binge content without effort. So the problem isn't effort. The problem is emotional discomfort. Tasks you avoid usually share one thing in common. They make you feel something you don't want to feel. Pressure, fear of failure, fear of starting and not finishing, fear of realizing you're behind. Avoidance isn't weakness. It's your brain trying to protect you from discomfort. But here's the problem. Your brain doesn't care about your future. It cares about comfort right now. And in today's world, comfort is everywhere. Dopamine overload, the silent discipline killer. Your phone is not neutral. Every scroll, every notification, every short video, they all release dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical of anticipation and reward. It's what tells your brain, this feels good, do it again. Years ago, dopamine had to be earned. You worked, you built, you struggled. Now it's instant. You don't need to move. You don't need to focus. You don't need discipline. Just open your phone. And over time, something dangerous happens. Your brain becomes trained to expect reward without effort. So when real life asks you to do something difficult, something slow, boring, or uncomfortable, your brain resists, not because you're lazy, but because it's overstimulated. Hard work feels dull compared to scrolling. Focus feels painful compared to entertainment. Silence feels unbearable. This is not a personal failure, it's conditioning. But conditioning can be reversed. First, you need to stop blaming yourself. Second, you need to understand what's actually keeping you stuck. The trap of waiting to feel ready. One of the most common lies people believe is this: I'll start when I feel motivated. I'll do it when I'm ready. I just don't feel like it today. That feeling you're waiting for, it rarely comes. And when it does, it doesn't stay. Motivation is not a switch, it's a reaction. You don't get motivated and then act. You act and then motivation follows. Every disciplined person knows this, even if they can't explain it. They don't wake up excited to work every day. They don't feel ready. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They move despite resistance. Waiting to feel ready keeps you stuck because readiness is created by action. Confidence comes from doing. Clarity comes from starting. Energy comes from momentum, not the other way around. If you keep waiting for motivation, you'll stay exactly where you are, watching time pass, watching others move forward and telling yourself you'll start soon. Soon becomes months, months become years, and one day you realize the cost, the real cost of believing you're lazy. The biggest danger of the laziness label isn't procrastination, it's identity. When you believe you're lazy, every failure confirms it. Every delay reinforces it. Every unfinished task becomes proof. And slowly, you stop expecting more from yourself. You lower standards, you make excuses, you shrink goals, not because you're incapable, but because you're tired of disappointment. This is how people lose momentum in life, not through failure, but through resignation. But the truth is simpler and more hopeful than you've been told. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a new personality. You don't need a new personality. You don't need to fix yourself. You need training. Discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. Discipline is not something you either have or don't have. It's something you practice. Every time you do a hard thing when you don't feel like it, discipline grows. Every time you avoid it, discipline weakens. This means two important things. First, your past does not define you. Second, your next action matters more than your last failure. You don't build discipline by making huge promises. You build it by keeping small ones. One task, one session of focus, one moment of choosing effort over comfort. That's how training works. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first, because your brain is used to easy dopamine, because it's used to escape, because it's used to comfort. Discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're retraining yourself. A new way to see yourself from this point forward. Stop calling yourself lazy. Replace it with something more accurate. I'm in training. Athletes don't shame themselves for being sore. Students don't quit because learning feels hard. They understand the process. You are in a process. You are unlearning years of avoidance. You are rebuilding focus in a distracted world. You are training discipline in an environment designed to destroy it. That is not weakness. That is a challenge worth taking seriously. The shift that changes everything here is the shift you need to make. Stop asking, do I feel like doing this? Start asking, what is the smallest action I can take right now? Not tomorrow, not later, now. Small actions break avoidance. Movement breaks resistance. Starting breaks fear. You don't need to finish everything today. You just need to begin. And once you begin, something changes. Your mind follows your body. Your emotions follow action. Your identity begins to shift. You stop being the person who avoids. You become the person who moves. Closing this chapter. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not behind because you lack ability. You are behind because no one taught you how to train discipline in a world built on distraction. But now you know, and knowledge changes responsibility. From here on, every small action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Not perfect, not motivated all the time, but disciplined enough to move forward one step at a time. And that is how everything begins. Chapter 2. Discipline beats motivation. Most people are waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel inspired, waiting for the right mood, the right time, the right energy. They believe motivation is the engine. It's not. Motivation is a reaction. Discipline is the engine. And this misunderstanding is why so many people stay stuck year after year. They wait for motivation to show up before they act. But motivation only shows up after action has already started. This is the rule most people never learn. Motivation follows action, not the other way around. Think about the last time you actually got something done. You probably didn't feel excited at first. You didn't feel ready. You didn't feel energized. You started anyway. And then something happened. Once you were moving, resistance faded. Once you were engaged, focus improved. Once progress appeared, motivation followed. That's how it works. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. Motivation reinforces action. But if you never start, the cycle never begins. Motivation is unreliable because it depends on mood. Discipline works because it doesn't care how you feel. Disciplined people don't win because they're more motivated. They win because they move without motivation. Why disciplined people always win? Look closely at people who consistently succeed. They're not always confident, they're not always excited, they're not always inspired. But they show up, they work when it's boring, they act when it's uncomfortable, they continue when others stop. They understand something simple but powerful. Results don't come from intensity, they come from consistency. Anyone can work hard for one day. Anyone can feel motivated for a moment. Very few people can keep going when progress is slow and invisible. Discipline is what allows someone to outlast others. Not talent, not intelligence, not luck. Endurance. Discipline is choosing effort over comfort repeatedly, and every time you do that, you separate yourself from the crowd. Motivation is emotion. Discipline is a decision. Motivation is emotional. It rises, it falls, it disappears when life gets hard. Discipline is logical. It says, "This matters, so I'll do it, even if I don't feel like it." That decision is what builds trust with yourself, and trust is everything. When you don't trust yourself to follow through, you hesitate to start. When you do trust yourself, action becomes natural. Most people don't lack motivation, they lack self-trust. They've made too many promises they didn't keep, so their mind resists starting again. Discipline rebuilds that trust not with big plans, but with small, kept commitments. Small actions beat big plans. Every time big plans feel good, they create excitement. They create fantasy. They create the illusion of progress. But big plans don't change lives. Small actions do. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. They aim too big, fail too fast, and quit. Disciplined people do the opposite. They aim small. They execute daily. They let time do the heavy lifting. 10 minutes a day beats 0 hours of planning. One completed task beats 10 unfinished ones. Consistency beats intensity every time. You don't need to transform your life overnight. You need to show up today. The power of finishing small things. There is a hidden power in finishing. Finishing rewires how you see yourself. Every time you finish something, even something small, you send a message to your brain. I follow through. That message compounds. Most people live surrounded by unfinished things, unfinished goals, unfinished habits, unfinished ideas, and every unfinished thing weakens identity. You don't become disciplined by thinking differently. You become disciplined by finishing differently. Start small enough that finishing is unavoidable. Finish one task. Finish one session. Finish one promise. Momentum grows from completion, not ambition. Becoming someone who finishes things, identity, is built from evidence, not words, not intentions, evidence. If your life is full of unfinished things, your identity reflects that. Not because you're incapable, but because you've trained yourself to stop. The goal now is not to do more. The goal is to finish more. Lower the bar but raise the follow-through. Instead of saying, "I'm going to completely change my routine," say, "I'm going to complete one focused task today." Instead of, "I'll stay disciplined forever," say, "I'll do what I said I'd do once." Discipline grows through repetition of success, not massive success, small, boring success, and boring success is powerful. Discipline is built in the moments no one sees. No one sees. When you stop scrolling, when you start anyway, when you choose effort over escape. Those moments don't get applause, but they define you. Discipline is quiet. It's choosing the harder option when no one is watching. It's doing the work even when the reward feels far away. It's showing up when motivation is absent. And every time you do, you strengthen something internal, something permanent. Stop trying to feel different. Start acting different. Most people try to fix procrastination by changing their feelings. That doesn't work. Feelings follow behavior, not the other way around. If you wait to feel disciplined, you'll wait forever. If you act disciplined, feelings will eventually align. You don't need to believe in yourself first. You need to prove something to yourself. And proof comes from action. The daily discipline question. Here's a simple question. Discipline people ask themselves, what needs to be done, regardless of how I feel? That question removes emotion from the decision. It turns discipline into a system, not a struggle. You don't debate, you don't negotiate, you act, not perfectly, not all at once, just enough to move forward. Closing. This chapter: motivation is temporary, discipline is transferable. Motivation fades when life gets hard. Discipline carries you through. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting to feel inspired. Start moving. Small actions, completed tasks, daily follow-through. That's how people win quietly, then permanently. And in the next chapter, you'll learn why procrastination isn't a time problem, it's an emotional one, and how to break it. Chapter 3. How procrastination actually works. Most people think procrastination is a time problem. They believe they need better schedules, better planners, better productivity apps. But procrastination has nothing to do with time. If it did, free time would fix it. And you already know that's not true. People procrastinate even when they have hours available, even when deadlines matter, even when consequences are serious. So if it's not time, what is it? Procrastination is an emotional regulation problem. And once you understand that, everything changes. Procrastination is not about being lazy. Let's be clear about something important. Procrastination is not laziness. It's not a lack of intelligence. It's not a lack of ambition. Procrastination happens when your brain associates a task with negative emotion. That emotion could be fear, boredom, stress, self-doubt, overwhelm. Your brain's job is not to make you successful. Its job is to keep you comfortable. So when it senses discomfort, it looks for escape. And escape is easy. Your phone, scrolling, entertainment, distraction. Procrastination is not choosing to do nothing. It's choosing short-term relief over long-term progress. The emotional cycle of procrastination. Here's how procrastination actually works. Step by step. First, you think about a task. Then, your brain predicts discomfort. Not the task itself, but how it might feel. Pressure, uncertainty, fear of doing it wrong, fear of realizing it's harder than you thought. That prediction creates emotional resistance. Your brain then looks for a way out, and it finds one. Distraction. You scroll. You check messages. You tell yourself you'll do it later. Instant relief. But that relief comes with a cost, because now the task is still there, and so is the pressure. So next time you think about it, the emotion is stronger. This is how procrastination compounds. The longer you avoid something, the heavier it feels. Why later is the most dangerous word. I'll do it later. That phrase sounds harmless, but it trains your brain to delay discomfort instead of face it. Later becomes a habit. Later becomes automatic. Later becomes permanent. The brain learns when something feels uncomfortable, we escape. And once that pattern is learned, it spreads. One delayed task turns into many. One avoided decision turns into a lifestyle. You stop trusting yourself to act. And without trust, starting feels heavier every time. Perfectionism, procrastination in disguise. One of the most common forms of procrastination doesn't look like avoidance. It looks like preparation. Overthinking, planning, researching, waiting for the right moment. Perfectionism is not high standards. It's fear disguised as responsibility. Fear of failing. Fear of being judged. Fear of not meeting expectations. So instead of starting imperfectly, you delay completely. But perfection is not the goal. Progress is. You don't need clarity to begin. You need movement. Clarity comes after action, not before. Overwhelm. When the task feels too big, another reason people procrastinate is overwhelm. The task feels massive, unclear, unending. So the brain shuts down, not because you're weak, but because the task feels undefined. Your brain doesn't avoid work. It avoids uncertainty. Big, vague goals create fear. That's why start working feels impossible, but write one sentence feels manageable. The brain needs clear, small targets. When the task is too big, avoidance feels safer. Why willpower fails against procrastination? Many people try to fight procrastination with willpower. They tell themselves, just push through. Just force yourself. That works briefly, but willpower is limited. When you're tired, stressed, or emotional, it runs out. That's why procrastination often happens at night, or after a long day, or when life feels heavy. Procrastination isn't a character flaw, it's a coping strategy. An unhealthy one, but a learned one. And learned behaviors can be unlearned. The real solution: reduce emotional resistance. The key to beating procrastination is not working harder, it's reducing emotional resistance. You don't need to convince yourself to finish the whole task. You only need to make starting feel safe. Lower the emotional cost. That means breaking tasks into small actions, removing pressure to be perfect, focusing on starting, not finishing. Your goal is not productivity. Your goal is engagement. Once you're engaged, resistance drops. The 5-minute rule and why it works. Tell yourself this: I will work on this for 5 minutes. Not forever. Not until it's done. 5 minutes. This works because it removes the fear of commitment. Your brain knows it can survive 5 minutes, and once you start, something happens. Momentum. 5 minutes turns into 10. 10 turns into focus. Focus turns into progress. And even if you stop at 5, you still won, because you broke avoidance. Action. Before confidence. Most people believe confidence comes first. It doesn't. Confidence is built from evidence, and evidence comes from action. Every time you act despite resistance, you prove something to yourself. I can move even when it's uncomfortable. That belief weakens procrastination. Not overnight, but over time. Procrastination loses power when it's no longer respected. Stop negotiating with resistance. One of the biggest mistakes people make is negotiating with themselves. I'll start after one more video. I'll do it when I feel better. I'll begin tomorrow. Negotiation keeps you stuck. Disciplined people don't negotiate. They decide. They accept discomfort as part of progress. They don't wait for resistance to disappear. They move with it. Procrastination shrinks when identity changes. As long as you see yourself as a procrastinator, the habit stays alive. Identity drives behavior. So change the story. Not I procrastinate, but I'm learning to act despite resistance. That small shift matters. You don't need to eliminate procrastination. You need to stop obeying it. Closing this chapter: procrastination is not about time, it's about emotion. And emotions don't disappear through thinking, they change through action. Small action, imperfect action, consistent action. You don't beat procrastination by waiting for motivation. You beat it by starting before you're ready. And in the next chapter, you'll learn how to build daily systems that make discipline automatic so procrastination has no place to hide. Chapter 4. Daily systems that remove laziness. If discipline relied on willpower, most people would fail. Not because they're weak, but because willpower runs out. You've experienced this before. You start the day determined, focused, committed. Then life happens: stress, distractions, fatigue, and suddenly the discipline you promised yourself is gone. This is where most people make a mistake. They blame themselves. But the problem isn't you. The problem is that you're relying on willpower instead of systems. Disciplined people don't have stronger willpower. They have better systems. Wise systems beat willpower. Every time willpower is emotional. Systems are mechanical. Willpower asks, do I feel like doing this? Systems say, this is what happens next. No debate, no negotiation, no drama. If you want consistency, you need fewer decisions, not more motivation. Every decision drains energy. What should I work on? When should I start? Should I do it now or later? Systems remove those questions. They turn discipline into routine, and routine turns effort into identity. Laziness is often environmental. Before you change yourself, look around you. Your environment shapes your behavior more than your intentions ever will. If distractions are always available, discipline becomes harder. If comfort is easier than effort, avoidance becomes automatic. Most people try to fight laziness internally, but laziness usually lives outside them. On their phone, in their room, in their schedule. Change the environment and behavior follows. The morning rule: win the first hour. The way you start your day matters more than you think. Morning sets the tone. If the first thing you do is scroll, your brain learns comfort comes first, and that expectation follows you all day. One simple rule can change everything. No phone for the first 30 minutes, not forever. Just at the start, use that time to make your bed, drink water, stretch, plan one task. This trains your brain to delay gratification. And discipline grows fastest in the morning before distractions take over. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a consistent start. The one hard task rule. Trying to do everything leads to doing nothing. So simplify. Every day, choose one hard task. Just one. The task you've been avoiding. The task that matters most. The task that moves your life forward. You don't need to finish everything. You need to face one thing you'd rather avoid. This does two things. It builds discipline through discomfort. It prevents overwhelm. Even if the rest of the day is average, if you did the hard thing, the day counts. Time blocks. Not to-do lists. Long to-do lists create pressure. Pressure creates avoidance. Instead, use time blocks. Decide, from 4 to 4:30, I work on this. No multitasking, no switching, no perfection. When time is defined, the task feels safer. Your brain doesn't fear endless effort. It fears open-ended effort. Time blocks create boundaries, and boundaries reduce resistance. Make bad habits inconvenient. If a bad habit is easy, you'll repeat it. So don't rely on self-control. Rely on friction. Examples: keep your phone in another room. Log out of distracting apps. Turn off notifications. Remove entertainment from your workspace. You don't need to eliminate distractions. You need to make them slightly harder to access. That pause, that moment of effort is often enough to break the habit. Discipline isn't about saying no. It's about making yes harder. Make good habits obvious. Just as bad habits should be inconvenient, good habits should be visible. Leave reminders where you can't ignore them. Your notebook on the desk, your shoes by the door, your task written clearly. The brain prefers what's obvious. If effort is hidden and distraction is visible, avoidance wins. Reverse that. The start before you're ready system. Most people wait to feel focused. That's backwards. Focus comes after starting. Create a system where starting is automatic. Example: same time every day, same place, same setup. You don't ask yourself if you're ready. You just begin. Even if focus is low, even if energy is missing, 5 minutes is enough. Systems don't demand perfection. They demand participation. Track effort, not results, are motivating, but slow. Effort is immediate. If you only track results, you'll feel discouraged early. Instead, track days you showed up, tasks you started, promises you kept. A simple checkmark matters. It turns discipline into something visible, and visible progress builds momentum. The end-of-day reset. Every day should end with closure. Not stress, not guilt, closure. Take 2 minutes to ask, what did I do well today? What will I do tomorrow? Write down one task for the next day. This clears mental clutter, and it makes starting tomorrow easier. Discipline grows when the mind feels organized. Consistency over intensity. You don't need extreme routines. You need repeatable ones. A system that works on your worst days, not your best. If it's too hard, you won't maintain it. Lower the intensity. Increase the consistency. 5 days of light effort beats 1 day of exhaustion. Systems create identity. Here's the most important part. When you act the same way every day, identity changes. You stop saying, I'm trying to be disciplined. You start saying, This is just what I do. That shift is powerful. You don't need motivation to be who you already are. Systems make discipline automatic, and automatic behavior becomes identity. Closing. This chapter, laziness is not removed by force. It's removed by structure. You don't rise to motivation, you fall to your systems. Build systems that reduce decisions, limit distractions, make effort predictable, and discipline stops feeling like a battle. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to build mental toughness, so even when systems fail, you don't quit. Chapter 5. Building mental toughness. There will be days when your systems fail, days when motivation is gone, days when discipline feels heavy, days when you don't feel strong, focused, or confident. This is where most people quit, not because they lack ability, but because they lack mental toughness. Mental toughness is not aggression. It's not anger. It's not forcing yourself to feel powerful. Mental toughness is the ability to keep going when quitting feels easier. And the good news is this: mental toughness is not something you're born with. It's something you train. Mental toughness is doing what you said you'd do at its core. Mental toughness is simple. It's keeping promises to yourself, not big promises, not dramatic promises, small ones. I'll start at this time. I'll work for 10 minutes. I'll finish this task. Every time you follow through, you build internal strength. Every time you don't, that strength weakens. Mental toughness is built quietly, in moments no one sees. Why discomfort is necessary. Most people avoid discomfort. They treat it like a signal to stop. But discomfort is not danger. It's training. Your muscles grow through resistance. Your mind grows the same way. If you only act when things feel easy, your tolerance stays low. But when you do hard things consistently, your capacity expands. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. What once caused avoidance becomes normal. Mental toughness is not about eliminating discomfort. It's about becoming familiar with it. The difference between pain and resistance. Not all discomfort is the same. Pain is harm. Resistance is growth. Resistance feels like boredom, restlessness, doubt, frustration. These feelings don't mean you should stop. They mean you're doing something that matters. If you quit every time resistance appears, you train weakness. If you stay just a little longer, you train strength. Training the do-it-anyway muscle. Mental toughness is built when you act despite how you feel. Not recklessly, not endlessly, but intentionally. You don't wait for confidence. You don't wait for clarity. You move anyway. That decision repeated over time changes you. You become someone who doesn't rely on emotion to act. You become someone who can function under discomfort. And that skill transfers to everything in life. The power of voluntary discomfort. One of the fastest ways to build mental toughness is to choose discomfort on purpose, not extreme discomfort. Small, controlled challenges. Examples: starting work, even when you don't feel like it, finishing a task without distraction, stopping an easy habit you rely on. These acts send a message to your brain: I'm in control, and control builds confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. Stop escaping every feeling. Most people try to escape discomfort immediately. They distract, they avoid, they numb. But every escape reinforces the idea that discomfort is unbearable. Mental toughness grows when you stay present. When boredom appears, stay. When frustration appears, continue. When doubt appears, move forward anyway. You don't need to enjoy it. You just need to endure it. Why tough people are calm, not loud. Mental toughness isn't dramatic. It's calm. It doesn't panic when things get hard. It doesn't complain constantly. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply continues. Calm persistence beats emotional intensity every time. The strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the most consistent. Building confidence through evidence. Confidence is not belief, it's evidence. You don't tell yourself you're tough. You prove it. Every time you finish when you want to quit, start when you want to delay, act when fear is present. You create evidence. And evidence changes identity. Over time, you stop asking, can I do this? You already know the answer. Don't quit on a bad day. One rule matters more than all others. Never quit on a bad day. Bad days distort perception. They make effort feel pointless. They make progress feel invisible. If you quit on a bad day, you train yourself to quit when it's hardest. Instead, reduce the effort, but don't stop. Do less but do something that keeps the habit alive. Mental toughness is not about pushing harder. It's about refusing to disappear. The skill of staying present. Mental toughness isn't about the future. It's about the next moment. Don't think about finishing. Don't think about how long it will take. Focus on the next sentence, the next minute, the next action. The mind can handle small moments. It collapses under imagined futures. Stay present. That's strength. When progress feels invisible, some of the most important growth happens when nothing seems to change. No reward, no recognition, no excitement. This is where most people stop, but invisible progress is still progress. Roots grow underground before anything shows above the surface. Mental toughness is trusting the process, even when you can't see results yet. Stop making comfort the goal. If comfort is your goal, discipline will always feel painful. But if growth is your goal, discomfort becomes acceptable, not enjoyable, not easy. Acceptable. You stop asking, how do I avoid discomfort? You start asking, how do I handle it better? That question changes everything. The long-term advantage of mental toughness talent fades without discipline. Motivation fades without structure. But mental toughness compounds. It carries you through boredom. It carries you through doubt. It carries you through setbacks. It makes you reliable to yourself. And reliability is power. Closing this chapter. Mental toughness is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming steady. Steady when things are uncomfortable. Steady when progress is slow. Steady when quitting would be easier. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to be perfect. You need to keep showing up, and when you do again and again, you become someone who doesn't break under pressure. In the final chapter, you'll define the identity you're building in 2026 and how to live as that person every single day. Chapter 6. Your 2026 identity. At some point, discipline stops being something you do, and it becomes something you are. This chapter is not about productivity. It's not about habits. It's not about systems or techniques. It's about identity. Because lasting change does not come from trying harder. It comes from deciding who you are and living in alignment with that decision. Why identity is the real battlefield. Most people try to change their behavior without changing their identity. They say, I'll try to be more disciplined. I'll try to stop procrastinating. I'll try to be consistent. Trying is unstable. Identity is stable. When you see yourself a certain way, your actions follow automatically. A disciplined person doesn't debate whether to act. A reliable person doesn't question whether to show up. A focused person doesn't constantly fight distractions. They act in alignment with who they believe they are. So the real question is not, what should I do? It's, who am I becoming in 2026? The cost of staying the same. Before you define who you want to be, you need to be honest about something uncomfortable. If nothing changes, if you keep delaying, avoiding, and waiting, there is a cost. Not tomorrow, not next week, over time. Missed opportunities, unfinished goals, quiet regret. Regret doesn't arrive all at once. It accumulates slowly, in moments when you know you could have done more. This audiobook exists to interrupt that future, not with pressure, with clarity. Identity is built through repetition. You don't become disciplined by declaring it once. You become disciplined by repeating disciplined actions. Every action is a vote. Every time you start when it's uncomfortable, you vote for discipline. Every time you finish what you start, you vote for reliability. Every time you resist distraction, you vote for focus. Identity is not a single decision. It's the result of many small ones. And the good news is, You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent enough that the pattern becomes clear. Choosing your 2026 identity. So let's make this practical. In 2026, you are not someone who waits to feel ready. You are someone who acts. You are not someone who avoids discomfort. You are someone who handles it. You are not someone who starts strong and fades. You are someone who finishes. That identity doesn't require motivation. It requires alignment. When action matches identity, discipline feels natural. The question that changes behavior. There is one simple question that disciplined people use often without realizing it. Before they act, they ask, what would a disciplined person do here? Not, what do I feel like doing? Not, what's easiest? But, what aligns with who I'm becoming? That question removes emotion from the decision. It turns discipline into a choice, not a struggle. Use it daily, especially when resistance appears. Living as the person you're becoming, you don't wait until you feel confident to act confident. You act confident, and confidence grows. You don't wait until you feel disciplined to act disciplined. You act disciplined, and discipline grows. This is the shift. You stop chasing feelings. You start practicing identity, and slowly, quietly, something changes. You trust yourself more. You hesitate less. You waste less time negotiating. You become dependable to yourself. Why consistency is more important than intensity. In the past, you may have tried to change everything at once. Big routines, big promises, big pressure. That approach doesn't last. Your 2026 identity is built through repeatable behavior, not heroic effort, not extreme discipline. Simple actions done often, on good days, on average days, on bad days, especially on bad days. Consistency is what separates change from relapse. When you slip, and you will, there will be days you fall back, days you procrastinate, days you break promises, days you don't feel proud. This does not erase your identity. What matters is what you do next. Do you spiral into guilt, or do you reset and continue? Disciplined people don't avoid mistakes. They recover quickly. They don't quit because of one bad day. They return to alignment. That skill returning is part of the identity. Your new standard. In 2026, your standard is not perfection. Your standard is follow-through. You don't aim to do everything. You aim to do what you said you would do. That alone puts you ahead of most people, because most people talk more than they act. You will be different, not louder, more consistent. The quiet confidence of discipline. As discipline becomes part of your identity, something unexpected happens. You become calmer, less anxious, less reactive, less dependent on motivation. You stop proving yourself. You simply move forward. This is quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation, the kind that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. Looking forward, not back. Do not measure yourself against who you used to be. Measure yourself against who you are becoming. Progress is not dramatic. It's subtle. It shows up in how quickly you start, how often you finish, how little you negotiate. Those changes compound. And one day you look back and realize you're no longer the same person. Final reflection. 2026 is not special because of the calendar. It's special because of the decisions you make within it. Every day is a chance to reinforce identity. Every action is a vote. So choose wisely, not perfectly, but deliberately. Closing the audiobook. You are not lazy. You are untrained. Now you are training. You are building discipline, not through force, but through alignment. You are becoming someone who acts, finishes, and follows through. Not someday, today. And every day after. This is how procrastination ends. This is how discipline becomes automatic. This is how 2026 becomes the year you stopped waiting and started living as the person you decided to be.